Hello, it's Randi Rhodes. Here's a clip from our show, and go to randirhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.
Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
Drastic shift.
Change has come to America.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
Drastic shift. Starting from maybe the week before, the president took his first trip abroad, that now we see you on camera about once a week. Is that a new normal that we would expect?
We'll see. We'll continue to mix things up.
Why are the cameras off, Sean?
Try.
Why did you turn them off? Can you just give us an answer to that? Can you tell us why you turned the cameras off? Why are they off, Sean?
It is a legitimate question.
It's a legitimate question. You are a taxpayer-funded spokesman for the United States government. Can you at least give us an explanation as to why the cameras are off?
Can we get this out of the way? Can we address the cameras issue? Do you think this?
Yeah, some days we'll have them, some days we won't. The president's going to speak today in the Rose Garden. I want the president's voice to carry the day. And I think so. Look, this is nothing inconsistent with what we've said since day one.
They are such lies. I can't even stand it. That was a little snippet of today's press briefing where the press was again shut out of the press briefing. And they said, oh, well, some days the cameras will be on and some days the cameras will be off. It's, we have to wake up and see what Trump's mood is, whether or not, he's in a mood to talk to the American people. And you know why the cameras are off? The cameras are off because then TV doesn't have video. And when TV doesn't have video, they don't show you very much. When they have video, it's must-see TV, those press briefings. When they don't have video, it's like, okay, well, we don't have video, so, let's talk about something else. It's amazing, but, radio or podcasting is not like that. If there's audio, we'll freaking play it. So that was Jim Acosta saying, Sean, why are the cameras off? Why are the cameras? I work for TV. We all work for TV. We're in TV. Radio died. You may not have heard, but radio freaking died because the same person is on every radio station, everywhere, at the same time, all the time. Same people. Same four people. So nobody's listening for you anyway. And he's like, I know. That's why we don't put it on the TV anymore, because the radio stations won't carry it, because the radio stations like to make up their own facts. And in fact, so do we. And so that's the way we're going to. In fact, over the weekend, did you see any of the Sunday shows? Oh, my God. They were full of Kellyanne Conway just lying her little ass off, lying. But before we get to her, let's just, Trump is tweeting again that the Supreme Court gave him a unanimous decision. Okay, that did not happen. I don't know. I don't know what to even say. I don't know what to make of this. I don't know how to explain to people who want to believe whatever, the radio says with the same four people, sponsored by the Heritage Foundation, sponsored by Hillsdale College, sponsored by Right Wing News, sponsored by rightwingorg.com, sponsored by, you give us your money and we'll teach you how to read the Federalist Papers in the correct way. Whatever it is, I don't know what to do about those people. They will never, ever believe a fact. However, the Supreme Court, the only thing the Supreme Court was unanimous upon today is the writ of certiorari. And what is a writ of certiorari? That just means we agree to hear the case in October regarding the travel ban. That's the only thing they all agreed on. Otherwise, it was a 6-3 decision that said, you can't ban people. And this is a problem, I will say. This is one of these really weird times where the dissenting opinion, the three that went for Donald Trump, okay, the three that went with Donald Trump's travel ban in its entirety, and I'm talking, take two. Take one, they're not hearing. They're hearing take two, right? The watered down version that Donald Trump tweeted was, terrible. It was terrible, sad, bad. We should go back to the full, religious bigotry of travel ban one, executive order. The first version of executive order 2. But that's not what the Supreme Court's hearing. However, 3 dissenters, okay, 6 said, you can't just do this. I'm sorry, but it just can't happen. And 3 of them said, well, what the 6 said is going to create a lot of litigation and confusion, and nobody knows what the hell you mean. The three dissenters were Gorsuch, Alito, and the chatty one. What's the chatty one's name? Clarence Thomas. Chatty. He's never asked one single question, you understand? Not one. Has never asked a question. I said that already. I was kidding. So Clarence Thomas and Alito and Gorsuch have me agreeing with them, because in their dissent, because this was not unanimous. See, if it was unanimous, you wouldn't have a dissent, would you? No, you wouldn't. But in their dissent, they said, here, wait, I highlighted. Yes, I had to read this thing for you today. They said, moreover, I fear the court's remedy will prove unworkable. Today's compromise will burden executive officials with the task of deciding, on peril of contempt, whether individuals from the 6 affected nations who wish to enter the United States have a sufficient connection to a person or entity in this country. They also said this compromise also will invite a flood of litigation until this case is finally resolved on the merits. I cannot believe I'm saying this, but I agree with Mr. Thomas, Mr. Gorsuch, and Mr. Alito. This was a split the baby decision, and it had nothing to do with the final decision because they haven't even heard arguments yet on the travel ban. All they were looking at today is whether or not they could, move past the injunction and they could reinstitute the travel ban that Executive Order 2 wants. And they said, not really. Not really. So here's what they decided. They split the baby. They said, listen, if you have a connection to the United States, if you are currently a visa holder, if you have family here, if you are a student attending a university here, if you're a lecturer and you're on the lecture circuit and you're supposed to give a speech here, if you have business here, if you, have they called it a bona fide relationship with an American, then the travel ban cannot apply to you. Contrary to what Trump wanted, they said, no, you can't do that. They also said that the vetting process has been improved, and they don't know what he's talking about when he talks about extreme vetting. Extreme, because the vetting is already extreme. And then they also said, and this is really crazy, they also said that the president indicated that the travel ban was a temporary pause. Although he tweets travel ban a lot, they said, we're not going to look at that. We're just going to look at what it is. And what it is on its face is an executive order that asks for a temporary pause on immigration from these particular Muslim states. And they said, by the time we hear this in October, which is when we're coming back from our summer vacation, today's our last day, right? That the 120-day temporary pause will have already happened, and therefore it will be a moot point, and we won't have to hear it at all. That is a punt, okay? That is what that is. That is a punt. And so they said that in part, with very narrow scope, they will allow a portion of the temporary pause to go into effect, but not against anybody who has a credible claim to any relationship to anything or anybody in the United States. Now, the three dissent, it was a 6-3 split the baby thing, except we prevailed on the things that are most grotesque, like Muslim ban. They said no. But the Thomas Gorsuch Alito camp has me in it, which feels very odd. Maybe I'm tired from researching Missouri. This is just for continuity for the podcasters who binge me. the last you left off, we had a caller, Tamara, saying that, Missouri had passed a piece of legislation that was going to allow employers and landlords to ask women whether or not they had abortion or use birth control pills. And if the answer was yes, they could, not serve you or not rent you. That is not completely true. I did not believe it as she was saying it. Of course, the Senate in Missouri did pass some heinous thing like that. The House, no, not so much. And so it's going to be fixed because it's unconstitutional in the House in Missouri. And then in the House and the Senate, this happened in an emergency session, this is not an emergency. But they called an emergency session. Why? Because the governor of Missouri is a newbie. He's new. He's a Trump. Okay, he's a guy who has no idea what constitutionality means. He has no idea what the Constitution says. He just does things. He doesn't know how a bill becomes a law. He doesn't understand anything to do with legislation. So he called them into emergency session and he made them, and so the Senate said, oh, fine, is what they said. The House, not so much. And now it's, the House has to do its work and then conference and it'll fail. So just for continuity purposes, for the people who do feel I'm binge-worthy, you are correct. Not to drop the subject that you last heard. But then now is Monday, and Monday the Supreme Court on its last day is going on vacation. And so they ruled on this, travel ban, this travel pause. And they said, no, you can't keep people with visas. You can't keep people who have, enrolled here in as a student. You haven't shown, any national security interest in this is crazy. So they said, if you're a student, if you work here, if you have a relative here, and I don't know how deep this goes. Are we talking Ancestry.com? Oh, I got a leaf, therefore I can come into the United States? I don't know. And they don't know. And that's why when Thomas Gorsuch and Alito wrote in their dissent on a 6-3 decision, no matter what he tweets, was not unanimous. And it wasn't a decision on the travel ban and its constitutionality. It was a decision on whether or not the stay on implementing it could stay in place. And they said, for the most part, yes. But if somebody has a leaf, I guess, then they can come. They can come into the United States. Now, Thomas Gorsuch and Alito for the last time said, what does that mean? And I agree with them. I don't know what it means. It is going to cause litigation. Different states are going to have different rules. Different towns are going to. This is just a mess. This is not a good decision about the executive order. It's just a mess. And so what's going to happen now is if you're a student, you're cool because you can document that. Hold on to all your papers, everybody, all your papers. So if you're a student, obviously you have a formal, documented, a formatted piece of paper that says that you are a student. If you're a worker, if you're here working, on that's my email. If you're working on, for a company, I'm sure you have, a documentation. If you have a visa, of course you have to keep your visa. But if you're here visiting your cousin's uncle's aunt, save that leaf from Ancestry.com because otherwise, I don't know. And I don't know how deep it goes. Like I said, there's probably somebody in our family somewhere along the, giant ancestral line that came from Syria or came from Mesopotamia. Oh, they took Iraq off. There's probably some Persian Jew that was fleeing that ended up in Russia and then got kicked out of, ran to Poland, got kicked out of Poland, ran to Russia, got kicked out of Russia, and then ran to, someplace in the Nordic region because my DNA says I'm a freaking Viking from the Nordic region. But I'm sure if you traced it back far enough, you could find some Jew fleeing Syria or Persia, which is Iran. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know. This was a kooky, crazy decision, and they won't hear the case till October, and that's just what happened. That's just the real deal. Go to RandiRhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.